Ladies and gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
Well, good morning, Bakersfield and surrounding communities, and everybody watching online on YouTube or streaming us online at ESPNBakersfield.com. I'm Chris Burdick, that's Sparky, and you are listening to the Early Bird Special on this, oh, you didn't know, Tuesday. Sparky!
Good morning.
Good morning, my guy. Let them know what we got today.
We'll talk how the NCAA broke my heart last night with about 2 minutes left in the game.
Did they break your heart, or did the Cougars break your heart?
It was just the whole damn thing.
The whole dang
and,
shebang?
and Google AI, but we'll get into that.
I know. That actually surprised me. I'm sorry not to cut you off.
My Bulls are playing the Cavs tonight.
You mean the Cavs are locking up the number one seed in the East tonight?
Without Donovan Mitchell.
And?
Yeah, and usually that's how the Bulls would roll. But we'll talk that. We'll talk football. We'll talk some Shador. We'll talk some Travis Hunter. And then we'll have our boy 24KG come in at the top of the next hour, give us a raw recap. And it is Trivia Tuesday.
It is.
So around 7:45, Burdick and I will throw a trivia out, which means you can text in or call in anytime at 661-842-2000. And we are live video streaming on our YouTube channel. Just look up the Early Bird Special. And I believe you can go to ESPNBakersfield.com. And I believe we are streaming on their website as well.
Yes, I have to double check that, actually. Thank you for reminding me, Sparky. But he is correct. You can go find us on YouTube. Just look for the little icon there of the bird and the worm, little red dot. You'll see us live. And you can watch our beautiful faces as we do this show for you every 2 hours leading up into the great Rich Eisen.
Yes.
Fantastic show.
Throwing out some love to start the show off before we get into NCAA and the championship game last night. I got to throw some love out to Yvette and the John Duffield office. They are my family away from family. And anytime you guys need anything, just let me know. I know we don't talk taxes, but if you need a tax man in this late April, don't wait until April.
If you've waited this long, I'm assuming you didn't plan on filing your taxes.
Hopefully you get an extension.
Hopefully, which is still possible.
You can always talk to the tax man, John Duffield, which is a diehard Dodger fan. But I just wanted to throw out some love to Yvette and everybody over there at the John Duffield office.
We appreciate you and everybody else listening from 7 to 9 a.m. every morning. But Sparky, we got plenty to talk about, my friend, as we had an NCAA championship again last night, but this time it was the men's. You had the Houston Cougars taking on the Florida Gators. And once again, Sparky, as we talked about yesterday, the Gators came out flat in the first half. Walton Clayton Jr. only had, I believe, 2 points at halftime, ended with 11 throughout the entire game, and had 7 assists in the first half. That's really what kept them afloat. However, with down 12, the Gators end up coming back incredibly in the final 5 minutes of the game, ending up winning 65-63 over the Cougars, putting the Cougars in an 0-3 in all title games in the NCAA as their records. So let's hear from the Gators head coach after their incredible comeback.
A heck of an accomplishment. I'm super proud of everybody in my program, top to bottom. My staff, who's been together for 3 years, has worked incredibly hard to help get our players to this point. And our players, they've been the difference all the way along. Been incredibly consistent all year, have worked with a great work ethic. And obviously we have an incredibly talented group, one of the most talented groups individually in America. But I do think what separates us and what has separated us all season long is our team talent and the way our guys have played together and for each other all year. And because of that, we can call each other national champions for the rest of our lives.
Alex Condon made the final steal at the end of the game to lock it in. He was a major factor throughout the game. As we predicted yesterday, Spark, it was going to come down to the big men underneath, how well Houston could be defensively and disciplined, which usually they're very well known for. At the end of the game, did not seem to be the case. And you obviously talked about this off screen and off air, but explain to the people why you are frustrated with the way this game ended, because I think you are not alone in this.
So yes, this isn't our full-time job. So we're doing, our full-time job after the show ends. And I got home probably about 15 minutes for tip off. And, about halftime, I was like, okay, I got 10 or 15 minutes to microwave something up. And I was doing some prep, and I was wondering, I knew Coach Sampson was going to be the oldest coach if they pulled out the victory. So, Trivia Tuesday, I was looking up, okay, well, who was the oldest coach before this if they would have won? And when I looked it up on my Google search, the first thing that pops up, it gives me the answer, which was one second. It says the oldest coach to win an NCAA men's basketball national championship would be Jim Calhoun, who led UConn to victory in 2011.
Correct.
But it says here's a more detailed breakdown. And at the bottom, it says Kelvin Sampson, Houston, at age 69, had the opportunity to win a national championship in 2025, but lost to Florida. And we're talking 12 minutes left in the game when it's telling me this. So I'm like, what?
Again, I cannot express how weird this was when I got this text message last night of Sparky. And you know what, Sparky, just so people see this and they're actually shown, can you show the camera and a timestamp? Because he's not lying. He sent this to me with it still being the second half. Houston was up big. It was one of those situations. If you're looking at our stream right now, Sparky's putting it up in the camera. It says right there at the bottom, right where he highlighted it, lost to Florida in 2025. I don't know if there's a timestamp.
Yeah, right up there on the top right. It's about
7:16 last night.
7:16.
This is the Google AI. So unless the Google AI is somehow a Nostradamus and can proceed to see the future and tell all of us what is going on, that is a little weird in my opinion.
Yeah, we had a tiebreaker in one of our work leagues, and me and my buddy Seth were fighting for it. He had Florida, I had Houston. And he's texted me. He's like, oh, this game's crap. You're just giving me crap. This game's trash. I'm going to change the channel. And this is when it was starting to get good. And so I sent him this screenshot. I said, well, I think Florida wins. So I'm just going to turn it off now. And sure enough, about 2 minutes left when it was starting to get a little chippy. And, luckily the refs went back and forth because there was a 3 or 4 minute window where they were just calling everything on Florida. And I was like, okay, this is going to start getting chippy. And after the guy slammed the ball down, got the technical, then there was, I believe, three fouls by Houston in a row. And then they can start seeing the fatigue in Houston. I was like, man, this is starting to slip. It's starting to slip away. And sure enough, I mean, I wish it would have been a better ending, even if they would have lost or kept losing. But that silly, play that they drew up at the end, I was like, okay, they had something hopefully better that they were looking into. But
well, I mean, Condon did a great job at jumping that though and stealing the ball away, thus, like I said, sealing the win for Florida. But it's like we said, the Houston team just lost all of their discipline at the end of the game. I am trying to find the name of the player who actually got fouled out with like 2 or 3 minutes left. One of the
big boy
defenders. Yeah, and losing him was a massive problem for them as well. We said it yesterday before the game. It was all going to come down, and we're not like saying this as if everybody else wasn't saying it too. Seth Greenberg said it as well. It was all going to come down to Houston's effort and their discipline and their defense. And unfortunately, none of that lined up at the end of the game yesterday. They had a great first half, much like I said. Florida, for some reason, came out flat again in this game and got bailed out. They genuinely got bailed out. Like you said, the technical at the end of the game with the frustrations and slamming the ball down. Ticky-tack, I realize. You probably shouldn't call that in a championship game. But realistically, the kid was throwing his emotions around all game long. So as a referee, you probably warned him a couple times.
Yeah, did you know that they can slam the ball down, but if they catch it, then it's not a technical?
Yes. Yeah,
but if
that's
they slam it and then they walk off.
They explain it because
it's like a delay of game.
It's exactly. It's like a delay of game. You're just throwing emotions because what's going to stop a player from just taking it one-handed and just Gronk spiking it into the ground and letting it go as high as possible? It's dumb. You could also really destroy the floor that way. These aren't solid wood floors, guys. Like they usually are replaced and like just panels that get put there, which are breakable. Obviously, if you weigh enough or have enough strength. So now again, not likely. It's very unlikely you could break it, but it is possible. But just regardless, all of it really boiled down to the lack of discipline at the end of the game and just the all-around collapse that was the foul trouble. As you said, there was a lot of fouls called on Houston that late in this game, which led to a lot of free throws. And I'm going to say it right now, Walton Clayton Jr. and Alex Condon of Florida should be top 15 picks in the draft upcoming if they both decide to go in, which I am pretty sure they both will after this season. That would not surprise me, especially Clayton Jr. He, again, 30 points in the last couple games, the biggest games of his career outside of this one where he only scored 11, but it was the talk of the tournament. Condon has really solidified himself as a leader and a great big man that a defensive-minded team in the NBA could potentially really want to grab. So I would expect both of them to go in. I think we all expect Cooper Flagg of Duke to go in and be the number 1 overall pick. Dylan Harper from Rutgers, the point guard, has already announced that he will be going into the draft next year. He will most likely be the number 2 overall pick, which as it sits right now will most likely either be Washington or Utah. But I mean, it's the lottery.
That's funny that you bring that up because I was looking yesterday on just like the mock drafts, and have they already done the lottery? Don't they do that like a week before the draft?
I am not 100%. No, I don't believe the lottery has been done, but I think it happens right before the playoffs. But let me find out right now.
Yeah, but so I was looking it up yesterday, and I was seeing because I also knew.
No, it'll be on May 12th.
Okay.
May 12th is the lottery. But this is also why I'm going to bring this up before we hit the soundbite from Houston, because we need to hear from the coach as well, Coach Sampson, about all of this. But does anybody else kind of not like the NBA lottery? Like, am I the only one? And I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan and have really benefited from the lottery on many, many an occasion. Kyrie Irving, Anthony Bennett, 2 instances. God, I wish Anthony Bennett wasn't one of those instances. But is it weird to anybody else that we allow the lottery to continue? Because it's definitely skewed, right?
You would think.
In every year, there's some fan base or multiple fan bases who say, yeah, that was rigged. Because I'm not going to lie to you. Does anybody think last year's wasn't rigged? Getting Victor Wembanyama to San Antonio,
yeah,
where he can learn under Doc for a while? Under Pop, I'm sorry. I mean,
didn't they put that in to take away from tanking?
Exactly.
And then there's still some type of rigging into
the tanking problem has been the problem in the NBA for the last couple of years, as well as sitting your players for half the season. But that's kind of my point, is that if you want to get rid of that, why not just stop the tanking situation? You have to focus on that, really. But I don't know exactly how you do that without this lottery. So I guess that does make sense. But I don't know. Again, that's just my thought. Text in. What are your guys' thoughts on the NBA lottery? Do you guys actually like it? Do we need this anymore? Or do you think that they should just go back to a traditional worst team gets the first overall pick? Because there's a lot of situations like the Utah Jazz this year, who are the worst team in the NBA, who had a really, really bad season.
I could totally see him getting Cooper.
And that's what I'm saying. Cooper Flagg could really fit there in Utah. And honestly, I think he's going to end up in Utah. But let's not forget, Utah was a playoff team, but 2 years ago? They're not that bad. So if they ended up with a guy like Cooper Flagg, that could really propel them back into the playoff situation. So,
well, going back to the NCAA championship, let's hear Houston's coach after the game on the plan. What ended the game last night?
But you guys have been so good at closing out games all year long. What happened in the final 2 minutes?
Florida was taken away. LJ forced him to get downhill. And I thought that was okay, because I thought if we could get help to come, he could get it up on the rim and we could offensive rebound it. And the last offensive rebound we had, JoJo's been so good at those kick-out threes, and he just brought it down, and they stripped him. Then, we had some guys have tough nights. One has been a great shot maker for us all year. He had a tough night. Emmanuel, LJ, but so did they. They're Clayton and Martin, I think, went 5 for 20. We guarded them. They guarded us. I mean, two really good defensive teams, and points were hard to come by tonight.
Those guys you mentioned Juwan, LJ, Emmanuel, they've been part of your program for so long.
Yeah.
What did you tell them in the locker room?
I told them be disappointed that they lost, but don't be disappointed in their effort. You know, these guys have played so hard for each other, and to get this far, get a minute, 2 minutes, a shot, something right there at the end of winning the national championship. They have so much to be proud of. And I am disappointed we lost, but I'm more appreciative that I got a chance to coach this group.
And, you know, that's a good answer. Be disappointed that you lost, but not disappointed in the effort. I mean, LJ Cryer had 19 points last night, led the entire team. Nobody else could get into double digits. They, again, had a first half of masterful defensive basketball, held a great team to low points, held their best player to 2 points and no field goals, by the way. The only 2 points he had were free throws. So they had a great game at first. I just want to know what happened. Again, this is something that I asked with the Auburn game as well. What the hell did the Florida coach say at halftime to get the fire under him to figure that out? Because this man is a masterful motivator if that is the case.
Well, it looked like he had told him at halftime to be more aggressive.
Very much so.
And then it almost backfired because they got like 4 or 5 fouls right in a row.
And then they were a little more strategic with that aggression.
And then it seemed like Houston backed off the gas pedal and got away from their game plan and kind of let them back in.
That, didn't it? Like they kind of felt like they were going to walk into a championship with this one.
When they were up by 12 or something like that, I was like, okay, just keep it on the gas pedal.
Mm-hmm.
And they started playing soft, letting the guys, back right into it, and then open threes the whole second half.
That killed them.
And I'm like, okay, they're going to come back. And with the little message from Google AI, I was like, man, if Florida pulls this out, I'm going to be pissed.
I still cannot believe that you sent me that last night. I'm sitting there watching the game. Sparky sends me this picture, and I said, "Uh-oh, what is this?" And to see Google AI predict the ending of this game, not with the points, that would have been even worse.
Yes, that would have been funny.
If they gave you the exact point ending, I would have said, "Okay, something's up here. Vegas is skewing something." But that's what we got for you guys for the NCAA tournament. Obviously, the Houston Cougars fall for the third time, and unfortunately still are searching for their first championship of their program's history. The Florida Gators now gain their third after their back-to-back wins in 2006 and 2007, and most likely will be the man to beat next year, depending on if Clayton and Alex Condon decide to go into the draft or not.
I saw the way too early
favorites,
and they have Duke up there.
Of course,
which will also probably change in the next half.
Yeah,
of the draft.
because there is the slight possibility Cooper doesn't leave. I doubt it very, very seriously. But there is, with NIL deals and stuff like that, the amount of money he can make in college, maybe it's more than he can make in the NBA. We won't know until we see it. But I doubt he stays. And also, I have to mention this as well because I have to type myself up. Yesterday, we said UConn on the women's side was number 3 in those rankings. That is what I saw at first. They have been since moved to number 1 on the women's side as well, with South Carolina being number 2. And I believe UCLA is now number 3. So that'll be the rankings most likely headed into next season. But until then, it's a long, long time. And we got NCAA baseball in the way and football right around the corner, which we'll get to in a second because we got to talk Shedeur on the other side of the break, Sparky. There's plenty to talk about on that side. And your boys in Miami might actually be in the running for him now, right?
Well, we'll hear about that. I didn't hear anything about that until this morning. So
I know. That's the new talking point.
We'll dive right into that right after this break. The Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. And welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. Sparky, we've been neglecting the NFL the last couple of days. There's plenty to talk about. Obviously, the draft right around the corner, and everybody can't get Deion Sanders' name out of their mouth.
It's all over the place. One week it's Shador's going to be the top 5 draft pick, and now lately it's been he's sliding, and
Which
he might slide it right out.
I want to point out again. We said that last week that there was the possibility that he could be the next Geno Smith or Will Levis, I guess, for the earlier crowd, because Will had the same thing happen to him. But is it a bad thing that he potentially slides to the second round? I say no.
I don't see it.
I don't see it either, especially with the teams that could potentially nab him at the bottom half of the first round.
And see, it's hard to buy anything with these draft talks because we're 2 weeks away, and they're going to try to throw any type of curveball or change up. And it looks like pretty much Cam Ward is the number one.
Yeah, and they've already stated Shador and the Titans have mutually agreed to cancel their workouts. I think that Rappaport had said it beautifully. I don't necessarily think this was I don't want to. It was more of we saw what we needed to see at your pro day.
Yeah, we've seen enough.
He had a fantastic pro day. But I think they have a idea what they want in a quarterback, and it's more Cam Ward than it is Shador Sanders.
Well, I'm going to throw in another curveball. I heard from Aaron Goldhammer, who thinks that I believe he says something about Shador and Hunter both land in Cleveland.
The piece of this that I think everybody else is going to get hip to by the time we get to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we get to the 2-week mark away from the draft, is the prospect of both Colorado guys ending up in the same place, and that place being here in Cleveland. Because I think if Shador is to get by the Saints at 9, and I'm not saying he will,
right?
Jets are at 7. I guess you can't totally rule out the Raiders at 6 still as a landing spot for Shador. But if you look at the teams beyond 9, it's all teams that have their quarterback or recently drafted a young quarterback, or so you start to get the Falcons are at 15. Those are spots where I could see somebody who needs a quarterback, these teams trading up, and the Browns are the team best positioned to do it because they're at 33.
Right.
And they need a quarterback, not who's going to play in a couple years like, I don't know, the Rams at 26. The Browns need a guy that they could play on the field, I believe, as soon as September 2025.
And he's right on the fact that they need a quarterback and they're searching for one. The likelihood of Shador dropping out of the first round is unlikely. I was going to bring up the possibility of a Lamar Jackson-esque situation happening where maybe the Browns or somebody trade up back into the first round at the very last pick with the Eagles, who clearly don't necessarily need any major pieces, but could benefit from pieces later on down the line. It would make a lot of sense if someone trades in to go get Shador, especially if he drops out of the top 10.
Yeah, totally. And I heard the same thing this morning driving in from Michelle Smallman, who put Miami up in the mix. And then 20 minutes later, I heard Schefter talking about the same thing. So this is what I heard from Michelle Smallman this morning.
We talked about Miami a lot. I don't know if that's a mystery team per se. They've got to have a better plan than what's going on with Tua. I know that they said, we're not worried about his health. Tua said he's not worried about his health. And we as a show kind of collectively said, okay, if you're not worried about it, we're not worried about it. But I'm worried about it. I'm worried about it. And I would like to have a better contingency plan than Zach Wilson if I'm Miami, especially with everyone on the hot seat.
I could not have said it better. I was going to say the exact same thing. I don't care if Tua was worried about it. I'm worried about it. Yeah. I don't want to see a man die on a football field. We said this the other day.
I don't see Miami taking Shador. I think
it's a good contingency plan, though.
I think Miami might be one of those teams that would be happily trade out of that first round pick to collect more picks.
True.
To build up on that offensive line in the secondary after they let go of cornerback 2. I think they need too much. I think the cornerback, the safety, and of course the offensive line has got to be number 1 instead of drafting your quarterback 3.
True. Yeah.
I
can see that.
It looks great on paper to have a young quarterback that could fill in
just in case Tua gets knocked in the head one more time.
But the amount of money they paid White to be the backup, and
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I just don't see it. And I think if anything, Miami might be selling at that point at 13 if Shedeur drops. But I could also see somebody like I don't think the Raiders are going to get Shedeur. I think they're going to get the running back out of Boise.
Gentry. I was just about to bring that up.
Which is going to be a beautiful pickup for Pete Carroll.
Well, and at this point right now too, they've just announced that they're having workouts with not only Gentry but Quinn Ewers from Texas. So I think you're on to something there, Sparky. I know we joked about it a week ago because of the soundbite that came from the GM. Oh Lord. Starts with an S, Spanik or something like that, from the Raiders. Apologies for misnaming the name, but it really matters not. When his son said that he would disown him if he didn't take Gentry.
Yes.
Or Genty. I love
that.
It was a great soundbite. I didn't believe it at the time because honestly, I was fully on the Raiders are drafting Shedeur train. And I still am to a point because let's look at what the top 6 picks are from one to the Raiders. You got Tennessee, which we already said is most likely taking Cam Ward. I am going to lock in Abdul Carter at Cleveland. I think that just fits. Now, if they take Travis Hunter, I think that the soundbite we just heard might be onto something. I think the plan for them would then to be trade back into the first round, either with a team like, Atlanta, who may be not sold on many defensive players in the first round.
You don't think Cleveland goes Hunter at 2?
There's a good possibility, but I think Abdul Carter fits what they want to do more, especially with the big question mark over Myles Garrett's head. Although he did sign the extension, I'm still not 100% sold he wants to play for Cleveland long-term.
I don't think anyone does.
I don't think so either. And I think he's going to realize that no amount of money is worth playing in Cleveland.
I hope Cleveland takes Hunter because then Abdul Carter would fall into probably the Giants or Patriots at 3 or 4.
And there's also multiple other picks that could be happening here. Will Campbell, the LSU tackle, would be one of them. Obviously, Travis Hunter, Mason Graham, the D tackle from Michigan, Alshon Genty, as we've been saying, the running back from Boise. There could be multiple picks mixed up here. I think the Giants, if they don't get an Abdul Carter, would take probably a Will Campbell to protect Russ and try to actually make something happen. At this point, I mean, you need some sort of momentum going your way, and your offensive line has been lackluster for the last couple of years, so why not build it? But if I am mistaken and wrong here, and the best way to say it, if I am wrong and Cleveland takes Travis Hunter, there could be some legitimacy to them trying to put Travis and Shedeur together in the NFL.
And then, like you'd said off the air, Shiloh in
and then Shiloh in the 3rd round. Why not?
That would be hilarious.
Why not? Let's just call him the Cleveland Buffalo at this point. Let's sign. You know what? We're all talking about Dion coming to Dallas, something like that. Shoot, he could take over in Cleveland.
Anybody probably could right now.
So
under Watson, is he just out?
Yes. Watson has re-aggravated his injury and is out for the foreseeable future.
Well,
again, I think his career is over.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I hate to say that, but because he was such a good quarterback in Houston. But ever since he moved to Cleveland and had the entire scandal with the massage therapists, he's never been the same, man. I don't know what's up with you. Actually, I do know what's up with you. It's everything going on. I'm not going to lie about that. Anybody going through the same thing would struggle at their job too. So I'm not going to sit here and claim that everybody would be able to do this because they wouldn't. But it is sad to see such a great talent and what could have been one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL history just crash like this.
Well, while we're talking Travis Hunter, there's been a lot of talk, the kid obviously wants to play both sides of the field. He's brought it up several times. He wants to play receiver, corner.
Do you actually think he'd be able to do that though, Spark?
I think he's got the ability to do it.
You think so?
But I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think, look, and I don't say as if he's a bad player, but and it's just like the Dodgers situation that I said the other day. Everybody gets tired. And if you have no time to get rested, especially the older you get, right now, sure. Yeah, the first year you go in, you could be like an Ohtani and play both sides of the field. But what happens when you turn 33, 32? I am now 31. I could promise you right now, I have nowhere near the stamina I had when I was 21.
Yeah.
You cannot play both sides of the field your entire...
My right knee has been hurting the last couple of weeks, and I don't even know what
exactly.
how I heard it.
These things happen the older you get. I don't think he can sustainably play both sides of the ball. There's no way.
And I think if anyone was going to allow him to, I think it would be Cleveland. But
well, yeah, they can use all the help they can get.
That's a risk, especially with a top 3 pick. You know, if you let the guy play, I mean, that's cutting his career in half, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I heard him talking yesterday, and how he said, you know, I can play both sides. Just let me prove it to you. Let me prove it to you. And I want to go to this clip from Jeremy Fowler on which position he thinks he'll actually play.
Well, it's fascinating because the slight majority of teams that I've polled on this do see Travis Hunter as a cornerback. As one executive told me, look, he'd be a top 10 to 15 wide receiver. He would be the number 1 cornerback in the NFL if you give him 2 to 3 years to refine that skill set. But to Matt's point, and several coaches I talked to who were in attendance in Colorado yesterday noticed he didn't do one back pedal yesterday. He was doing receiver work. He was not doing cornerback work. All the defensive coaches noticed. So he was making a statement of what he probably prefers at this point. So teams are sort of racking their brain. Hey, if he's going to be a wide receiver, can we get him as a third down cornerback, let's say, a third down package, which is really hard to do in the NFL with the meetings and how hard it is to just play one position. Can you really get away with playing 2 from a logistical standpoint? He's really the case study and really talented enough to probably do it.
Honestly, I could see that happening more likely than him playing every down on offense and defense. Maybe some specialized packages when you need him. He could be a fantastic safety or corner. But I have to agree. I think a wide receiver is more what his skill set is set for right now, especially since, in my personal opinion, outside of quarterback, cornerback is the hardest position to play in the NFL,
especially when you're flip-flopping those positions. But do you think it's actually where he'll play receiver, or do you think it's more of where he lands? Is it that type of wild card where wherever he lands, they'll work him out as a corner or work him out as a receiver?
I think it should depend on where he lands, because we talk about this all the time. There's more likely a positive success for a player depending on what team he plays for. Obviously, in the Patrick Mahomes situation, I don't think he would have been as prolific early in his career without an Andy Reid-like offense. Now, not saying that Patrick isn't worth all the money and he is a great quarterback. He's a fantastic quarterback, but the offense is built for Patrick. And I think it would be the same thing in the case of Shedeur and Travis. I think if either of them, like if Travis ends up with, say, the New England Patriots, I'd say you'd see him more on the offensive side than you would on the defensive side, because they need help at wide receiver. But I do see your point. If he ends up in a place like Cleveland, I see them playing him more at a corner than I do at a wide receiver, because they need more help on the defensive side, in my opinion, than they do on the offensive side. So I do think it depends on what team ends up with Travis.
And I'm going to bring up this guy because I hear a lot about him through the Greg Kerr show. We've talked off the air, how many quarterbacks do you think will go in the first 2 rounds? A lot of it lands on this Shedeur. If Shedeur goes early, then I'm thinking there'll probably be 3 quarterbacks. But I know what's his name?
Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart is the guy that Kerr's been talking about, and he's a big fan of him. Do you think he's one of those quarterbacks that is a good pickup later in maybe the 2nd round?
I don't know if I'm a good person to ask this question, because
I don't
as
have
a USC fan,
of course,
we had a short stint with Mr. Jackson Dart as our quarterback. It did not go well.
No,
Let's just say that. They did not go well. I'm not a huge fan of Jackson Dart, but what he did at Ole Miss was way different than what he did with USC. So there's a possibility his game has evolved since then. But personally, I would rather see, or I personally believe more in, I should say, a Jalen Milroe or a Quinn Ewers than I do a Jackson Dart. And I say this because you've seen more of both of those quarterbacks in bigger games in college than you saw Jackson Dart in. Although Jackson did play in the SEC, Ole Miss was never really a threat in the SEC when he was there. Like, they were a tough team, don't get me wrong, and they got a lot of great wins. But when you really boil it down, Jalen Milroe and Quinn Ewers with Texas had way more success, although probably a little more loaded in their rosters. But I think overall they had a better skill set. And I think Ewers especially is a better pocket passer than Jackson Dart is. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Quinn, and I think he could potentially be a little sleeper pick for anybody looking for a quarterback in the second or third round. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I've heard both sides of it. That's why I wanted to ask you, because I've heard late second round.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard, a lot of the Mel Kipers have bounced back and forth with, they think there'll be 2 quarterbacks in the first round, maybe 2 in the second. So, I mean,
and there could be one. There could only be Cam. We don't know. And honestly, I really, you heard me last week say this, that Shedeur could slide. And I genuinely believe that is a possibility, especially depending on which way the Raiders want to go. Because if the Raiders end up going with the running back, I don't see Shedeur getting picked up by the Saints. I think the Saints are looking at more long-term goals than they are at short-term turnaround, because the NFC South right now, although weak, will get weaker as time goes on.
Yeah, and the most recent mock draft that I've seen, where Dart doesn't get picked up until the 4th round.
Yes.
And this one has Will Howard in the 3rd round to Pittsburgh. So, I mean, we'll know here in 2 weeks. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about it. Are you ready?
I don't see him going past the 2nd round.
Who do you think Atlanta's taking?
Oh, God. You know what? Actually, I do have a guy. I want Green. I want the defensive end that had the absolute show out at the senior day. I cannot remember. I think he was a smaller school. I can't exactly remember who he played for, but Mike Green, the defensive end. Atlanta has had the same problem every single year. And as a Falcons fan, it frustrates me to no end. But we haven't had a good pass rusher since John Abraham.
And you're going back.
That is the best pass rusher we've ever had.
This mock draft I'm looking at has him taking Mikael Williams,
which is
the edge from USC.
Oh, well, I mean, okay. As a USC fan, obviously I'm biased there. I doubt we take a USC boy, though. That we never.
No,
well,
not USC. That's Georgia.
Oh, but that makes more sense. I was about to say we usually pick up people from Georgia or something like that. The Falcons front office are homers quite a bit when it comes to these things. And I get it. I mean, the Georgia Bulldogs are a stout team.
That's my college team. So,
but I mean, again, Atlanta, from everything I've been reading, all defense. Don't expect them to take any offensive players, including linemen. They're not happy with the way the offense is, but they are content with the way the offense is. And I'm hoping, praying. Look at me in the camera right now. Praying.
Oh, you're not doing the CM Punk thing?
Oh, God, please. Please find a trade for Kirk. Please. I know we have to eat 10 mil. That's fine. Eat 10 mil for a year, but get this boy out of Atlanta.
I think it's going to happen.
Get him out of Atlanta. Get some draft picks. Even if it's a 4th and a 5th round, I don't care. That's a starter for us at this point.
Yes.
Get him out of Atlanta.
I think it happens.
Get him out of Atlanta and maybe pick up, I don't know, who's a late quarterback that we could get this year. I guess Milroe, if he drops that far, will be interesting. I don't know. It's just, can we move on from Kirk, please? This entire thing was a massive oversight, much like the freaking Pirates. Okay, but this time you can't exactly pawn it off on advertisement. We made a bad move. Kirk Cousins is not the guy, never was. I've been saying it for 2 years. You can listen to our podcast from back a year ago when this move happened. Everybody was giving me grief for it. Sparky was giving me grief for it. Our good friend Ali Saldana was giving me grief for it, as she is a Vikings fan. Can we please just get rid of Kirk already? Enough with this. We're happy with him as the backup.
I've heard rumors of him going back to Minnesota.
Go back to Minnesota. I don't care.
Where he actually plays well.
Don't care. At this point, he could go to Timbuktu. Couldn't care less.
Well, we're going to come back with our trivia question for all of our listeners. You can call or text in 661-396-1000. And then at the top of the hour, 24KG has entered the building. We'll have our Raw recap at the top of the hour, plus much, much more of the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.
trivia, baby. Oh.
I'm not finished with you.
I don't think you're gonna like how this ends, Hotshot.
Say my name.
Your ass better call somebody.
I win. I win.
Time to play the game.
Welcome back to the Early Bird Special on Trivia Tuesday with Sparky
and Burdick. Now, I'm going to have you do that every single time because you do a much better game show voice than I. However, your trivia question of the week, and we are not going to give you the answer to this one. You guys have to text in your answers, okay?
We
text or
stumped them
call.
last week.
We did. We stumped all y'all. None of you got it last week. I was very disappointed in you wrestling fans. How did you not know Sting? Come on now. But this one is for you football fans out there and superhero fans, believe it or not, Sparky.
Uh-oh.
So your question for the week, what popular superhero theme inspired the NFL on Fox theme song? What popular superhero theme, and its theme song, it's popular superhero theme song, inspired the NFL on Fox theme song? If you think about it, you could probably figure it out. Now, I would have Sparky play the theme for you. I don't know if we have that loaded, and I don't know if we even can because due to copyright reasons. However, if you have the answer, text it in right now, 661-842-2000, or feel free to call as well. We could field your calls for the next couple minutes before we get into our segment with Mr. 24KG.
Reminds me of Terry Bradshaw, Jimmy Johnson.
Of course. There's not many others. But what superhero theme song inspired this legendary NFL on Fox theme that you hear every Sunday morning as you enjoy your team? Most likely get the stuff kicked out of them by whomever they're playing that. Marky, let's get into a little bit of NBA since we've been on the other side, but we wait for these text messages to flow in. The playoffs, once again, right around the corner. 4 games left as we wait tonight. The Lakers got the Thunder once again. Is a massive game for them. If they can pull off another win and keep this momentum rolling, I think my prediction of the Thunder could be in trouble might actually come true. What say you?
I think they pull it out tonight.
You think so?
Hopefully. I'm hoping OKC gets at least back into the second round. But we talked a lot about that yesterday. I know last night there was only 2 games. The Kings beat the Pistons. My boy Levine, I never understood why we traded him, but put up 43 points. Kings beating the Pistons, moved them 1 game ahead of the Mavericks at number 9. And the Pistons lost to the Kings, fell a game and a half behind the Bucks for the number 5 seed, and then Miami over the Sixers. The Heat beating them made them within a game and a half on the Bulls, which the Bulls and the Cavs tonight, which we'll have a little gentleman bet on that one.
Of course, but I mean, again, it's just going to lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers locking up the number 1 seed for the Eastern Conference.
They are at home. Celtics at the Knicks later. There's also the Timberwolves at Milwaukee.
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
And then the Warriors at Phoenix.
Now, the Warriors need this win because they're part of this 4-way tie in the West between the 6th seed and the 8th seed, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, the 5 seed and the 8 seed. As it sits right now, the Western Conference is the Thunder at first, the Houston Rockets second, the Lakers sitting at third with about a game and a half over the Nuggets in fourth. Then you got the Clippers, Warriors, Timberwolves, and Grizzlies, the 5 through 8, all tied at 46 and 32. And a pivotal game tonight for the Warriors, because if they can get this win and sneak up a little bit closer out of the play-in, because right now they're dangerously close to having to be in that tournament.
I know you pulled the clip from Stephen A. sat down with Draymond.
Now, this clip exactly, they were talking about this the other day. Is Draymond trustworthy? Because if you remember correctly, Draymond has said on camera that he believes if he wasn't suspended in that series between the Cleveland Cavaliers a couple years ago, they would have won and they would have easily walked away with that championship. I disagree, being a Cleveland fan, but I am biased. However, Stephen A. Smith made a very, very good point on what they need from Draymond. So let's hear from Stephen A.
You've been on the record acknowledging you believe if you hadn't gotten ejected in Game 5 of the 2016 NBA Finals that the Warriors would have won the championship. Last year, due to the multiple suspensions and stuff, y'all missed the playoffs. You missed the playoffs. So those are two occasions where you're looking at the Golden State Warriors and their postseason aspirations were derailed because of you, Draymond Green. That can't happen again.
It can't. And again, as much as I love to hate on Draymond, Draymond is most likely a runner-up. I would say runner-up because I think Evan Mobley will be walking away with the Defensive Player of the Year this year for the NBA. Although he is a very good contender, is Draymond Green. You can't not have Draymond Green on the court during the playoffs. He is a pivotal part of your offense, and that's what the Warriors need. They need all of their pieces, including this stellar starting five that they have found. That is, 18-1, 19-1 since they've been put together with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, they'll need a healthy Butler as well.
Absolutely, which they will most likely get before next week's start. But that's also why I say if you are the Golden State Warriors, you desperately need a win tonight over the Phoenix Suns because you need to get out of the play-in situation because you need that time to get Butler healthy. And if you have to deal with a play-in game while Butler is hurt, Butler's going to want to play, which means the injury is going to take longer to heal, and it's not going to work out for you in the long term of the NBA playoffs.
And I think the Bulls need this win just as big over Cleveland tonight, just because
keep the momentum going.
They need to fight off Miami and not let them leap over in the standings.
Sorry to break it to you,
We'll
though,
see.
Spark.
We'll see.
My
Craziest
Cavs,
things that happen.
My Cavs are unbeatable. I'm sorry. The East is. You better be worried because you have to deal with this most likely in the first round too. If you guys make it out of that,
hopefully, I love these underdog matchups. That's
Josh
what
Giddey,
enjoys it, man.
Josh Giddey,
he's on fire.
The White Lightning. Telling you, man, the exciting whites, as McAfee likes to call them. But at this point, I think you guys are in a pretty good spot to get out of that play-in, especially with the momentum that you have been building. I totally forgot about the 30-point win against the Lakers a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That is a great momentum builder for a young team.
Beat them twice in 4 games or 4 days.
Absolutely. So you guys are on the uptick. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get to a 500 record this year with the 42 losses, but
it happens.
It happens. You're right.
They got to get hot at the right time. But we got KG up in the studio. Check out the video stream on the Early Bird Special YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
And we'll recap Raw. I've got a couple questions that were sent in for KG. Coming up right here on the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. Welcome back. Early Bird Special, Hour 2 here on this You Didn't Know Tuesday. We'll get to your text message answers here in a second. But our boy 24KG is in the building. We had Raw last night, live from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Mommy on top this morning.
Well, you know, she started off
a little bit of mommy on top. Hey, fellas, how you doing today? Hey, sounding good, sounding great in here. All right.
Good morning.
Just saying, man.
You can never have too much brutality for Rhea Ripley in the mornings.
Never. And at this point right now, we'll get into that one in a second because it really seems to me that they're trying to edge EO out of this match.
Well, we got WrestleMania in 12 days, guys, and the build-up to the Women's Triple Threat Championship match is underway. And I've got to say, it's moving swiftly along without EO.
That's the wildest part about this is she has to kick her way into the conversation every week as they just mush her away.
I'm just tired of seeing her getting disrespected.
No, that kick in the back of Rhea's head last night was pretty fierce.
It actually caused a headbutt into Bianca, which was a great way to take him out. I don't know if that was planned, intentional, or whatnot, but they sold it beautifully. Let's kind of move down this course because we've got to touch on some SmackDown things as well, gentlemen. So Raw kicked off with Adam Pearce addressing the women's triple threat situation, which we seen implode upon itself, giving us an official triple threat match for WrestleMania. What's your opinion on this, Chris?
We called this about 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I mean,
very predictable booking, very safe.
You can go back to our YouTube channel and check out those videos. Me and Kimball and Sparky have been talking about this for weeks. We knew this was going to happen. This is just the easiest way to build up what is going to be probably the best women's match at WrestleMania.
Definitely. We'll talk about the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, Tiffany and Charlotte is falling flat on its face. Although, from what I understand, the internet is brewing about this. There might be some actual beef between the two women behind.
We will address that momentarily.
But yes, that's my opinion. I mean, I am excited about this one. I'm a massive mommy fan. I'm a massive fan of all three of these women. They're all fantastic at what they do and are easily the three best women on the women's division,
hardest working
roster,
hardest working right now.
Well, yeah, I could say that as well. Charlotte obviously returning. We'll see that and what it could brew into in the next couple months. But Rhea, Io, and Bianca, there are no other women, in my opinion, on the main roster that deserve this more.
All right, we're pretty good on predictions. So, Sparky, who do you think's pulling out of this match?
I'm going to take Ripley.
All right.
Atta boy. Welcome to the train.
Not by choice. I just think that's how it's working on. I would much rather have EO.
I think you see it. I think you see this three-way feud brewing longer than just.
I think this title bounces around between these three for a while.
Oh yeah,
I think so too.
We might even see this reculminate at SummerSlam, guys. So just
we'll see.
Be aware of that.
Which also is this the year that SummerSlam and all that become 2 nights now?
Yes.
So they will be mimicking the format of WrestleMania. And as we said last week, there are, I'd say, 3-4 main pay-per-views for the WWE a year, which are WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and oh Lord, I'm drawing a blank on the last one.
They usually change it. It's after WrestleMania. What was it? Day 1 a couple years ago,
something like that,
or
I know
it's a
Money in the
Backlash
Bank is one of them,
something like that.
I mean, again, but basically they're moving all of these to 2 nights instead of 1 to maximize on profit.
So get your wallets ready, folks.
Right. I know the Money in the Bank is that. I believe
is back. That's headed to LA.
It's the weekend right after SmackDown.
I believe
here,
so.
I believe.
Yeah.
So they're going to be
which is
nice
also
setup.
another plug. SmackDown headed right here to Dignity Health Arena.
Most definitely. I believe that's
June 6th.
June 6th, folks.
Be there. It will be a massive build-up.
Right when I get my tax return, of course.
Of course. But I'm
perfect
just saying,
timing.
Right.
Perfect
all
timing.
The merch,
well
and
done,
you might see an early bird special sign or 2 out there in the crowd too. Look out for it.
Let's generate a few.
And at this point, it is just building up to what is going to be another profitable year for the WWE.
One of their most profitable, seeing as how they've broken every financial gate record that they've had previously in the last 5 years, 10 years.
However,
I'm not saying this is due to inflation.
No,
it's
but
just because the product
that's
is hot.
Yeah.
The
I
product
don't know
is
about-
steaming hot.
I think you have to take into account too, though,
Just a
that-
little bit of inflation.
And we
Just-
talked about
just a
this
little
last
bit.
week. Sparky was on the therapy couch all Thursday talking about how expensive these tickets are getting, my brother.
It's getting to the point where you're either sacrificing your kids' college tuition or you're going to a live WWE event. So moving on, we've got AJ Styles in a segment that kind of gives us some leeway and insight into what Karrion Kross's future with the company might be. I'm looking forward to next week's Raw with Kross and Styles, but also this package with Logan Paul versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania. I want to say instinctually Styles takes it, but the way they're positioning Logan Paul in this company, who is hated worldwide, it's a good look.
Check out Paul American on HBO Max right now, by the way.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
I could totally see the same thing. And I think Paul will pull it out, but it'll set up the Cross Styles.
I honestly do. I have to agree with you. I'm hoping we get Kross kind of sneaking his way into this match somehow at WrestleMania, because he has been a part of WrestleMania the last couple years and has had some very, very good matches. For those of you who don't know, Karrion Kross is a very coveted NXT champion from a couple years ago who has kind of faltered on finding his way on what his spot is on the main
who was
roster.
initially packaged perfectly.
He was, and really has kind of evolved into this devil of the wrestling world, kind of the devil on these wrestlers' shoulders.
Is it bad? Do you want to do it? He's your moral conscience in a gray area.
And not to mention, he's so subtle with it. I mean,
he's good at
I
it.
don't know if you guys have noticed the internet thing, but he changes his hairstyle to mimic whatever wrestler he's wrestling at the time, and he does that on purpose.
Very much so.
He does that on purpose to kind of mimic the "I'm the devil on your shoulder" aspect.
And he's been booked in the background of a lot of storylines
Yes.
for quite a while. You can attribute the downfall of the bloodline to Karrion Kross's aforementioned
not to mention the heel
business.
change for Shinsuke Nakamura and Drew McIntyre.
Big time.
And amongst others. And you're right. Like, usually he has a hand in a lot of these stories, but they haven't necessarily brought him in as essentially what I believe to be the Thanos of the WWE, because he's just so good at it.
He's inevitable. You're going to run into him backstage as a character, and if they're developing you and building you, you're going to have a segment.
And
with
this is
Karrion
a man.
Kross.
Go look at this guy's Instagram, because he literally can break a full wooden baseball bat.
Two of them
with his bare hands.
Two of them.
He's done it. He took place in Bloodsport this year. He's a real guy, like MMA style fighter. He's a great guy off the screen too. But
yeah, I
it is-
saw his
And
Instagram.
he interacts with his fans
He
via
does.
Instagram.
Yeah, I
he's
saw that.
very down to earth.
Adopting cats, and he's
Yes.
in a
So don't let
rescue
the
thing.
character work on TV fool you guys.
no, he's a
actually decent human
fantastic
being.
individual. And honestly, that's why I want to see him in some sort of facet at WrestleMania. He deserves one.
All right, moving on. We've got our 6-man tag match with the LWO versus American Made and special guest El Grande Americano, aka Chad.
What is your
Gable.
take on this, dude? Because this is fantastic story
we
building.
are seeing the second coming of Kurt Angle right now, and in all honesty, is great because we used
Kurt
to see
never really did the luchador thing.
just the wig gimmick. He took on
true.
these comedy personas that really would be the antithesis to somebody who's such a machine, who's so
Yes.
intense, who's so well-rounded of a performer and athlete that let's just hark back to the Shorty G era.
Mhm.
Terrible creative. But for some reason, when we stick him with this goofball gimmick right now
Mhm.
of him denying that he's El Grande Americano, I buy into it because how they've developed it, his frustrations with the luchadors, his problems with Rey Mysterio, Hall of Famer who's still active and very much so a legend in his right. I'm not going to say his own right, in the whole right of
No,
being
he
that.
is. He's a Hall of Famer
He's been
already.
wrestling practically as long as we've been alive. So
The only wrestler I believe to be in the Hall of Fame and still be wrestling
God bless his knees.
full time.
God
full
bless
time.
his knees.
Well, I mean, the guy also does. Doesn't he do? He does stem cells, right? For
Yes,
the recovery process.
Stem cell recovery process, the same that Kobe Bryant took on a lot of NFL players.
Because this
as they
man's
get
in
older.
his 50s, mind
Yes,
you, and he's
yes.
still a top-notch luchador.
And with that
That's
side
incredible.
character, it allows him to be the anti.
Right.
Because
Yes.
what he pulled last night with the
With the steel plate in
metal
his
in
mask.
his mask. Yeah.
Now, logically speaking, folks, we have to suspend
Which
all reality and
realistically was
what
a
we're watching
shoehorn,
here. Now, if you put something that's metal up to your face and have contact with another person, it's gonna hurt. So please don't try any of that at
No.
home for our younger
Of course.
listeners and viewers on the YouTube.
Trust me, I've learned. My brother gave me a pedigree in my hallway when we were growing up, and I didn't know there was cement under the carpet, and I was out like a light.
I could imagine what your Thanksgivings were like after.
Dude,
Oh, and
like my family never did the wrestling moves.
Well,
to
I got
each
him back.
other,
He
unless
was
there's a
he
bounce
was
house.
playing video game one day. I pulled up on the camel clutch while he was playing.
Yeah.
And so I got him back. We
There you go.
did that a lot.
Yeah,
growing
I
up.
mean, we were a sharpshooter family. we were a sharpshooter family around my house.
Choke slams over here.
All
sorry.
right, then moving on to this video package, we have, speaking of Hall of Fame inductions, Paul Levesque, Triple H, officially going into the WWE Hall of Fame. And speaking of which, the night of, after WrestleMania, you have Tony Heathcliff giving a roast of WrestleMania and the weekend's
And is that on
activities.
TV?
No, that is not on
That
television.
is something that I think we should not be denied, and we need to speak to the powers that be to get that.
If you don't think
viewed.
someone's going to leak that on YouTube, you're nuts.
I think they're going to film it for his YouTube, especially.
Well, it could now because Kill Tony is now on Netflix starting
Yeah,
yesterday.
He made an appearance last night.
So he did.
with
good.
the machine.
Yeah,
yes,
nonetheless.
Absolutely.
That was quite a stomach. I
Bert
thought Otis had a
Kreischer.
stomach, but
Yes.
Lord.
No, that entire interaction between
Lord.
Bert Kreischer and Otis was something
In
we
another
needed.
universe, Bert Kreischer is somewhere holding up a real championship at this age, and he's like, "Oh, that 30,000 matches, I can't even remember." But however it's going for him, I'm glad to see him doing well. I enjoy his movies. I enjoy the comedy that they're just the celebrity aspect of interaction that they're bringing into WWE now with the Netflix affiliation is refreshing to see.
And they're trying their hardest to stay relevant in what the internet is into,
I was
which
just
I
about
really
to say
like
that.
to see.
Yeah, it's a great conscious effort to say we're paying attention and we're listening.
Exactly.
Unlike the previous administration. So let's just go into that match real quick that came after this video package. It was a world championship match with the New Day. God, I mean, it's terrible for what they've done to Big E.
Again.
Versus the Viking Raiders / War Raiders. All right, we're gonna settle in on this name. Are they officially War Raiders now?
I think with the setup you saw, man, there was no real angle to the Viking side of what they used to be. So I think they have officially
prologue this to
removed the Viking part of the Viking Raiders. I think it is the War Raiders now, which is more of your stepdads who like to beat the crap out of people at bars kind of feel to me.
The biker vibe.
I
biker
do
vibe.
miss the Viking aesthetic mixed in with the whole biker.
See, I don't
feel just slightly.
I
They
don't.
didn't need to come down with their Valkyrie or
I
anything
get
like
that,
that.
you know,
But
like you said, we need to suspend some disbelief in watching wrestling, obviously, but Vikings, really?
Yeah.
Like, really? It seems It's like if you sent out somebody in a ninja outfit. Like, are we really going to sit here and pretend like this is still a thing?
Let's not forget Tozawa almost.
That's not what I mean.
We had a
You know what-
whole gang of ninjas.
I understand that, but
from
that's
all
what-
different backgrounds and ethnicities. So it's not to say it's ruled out that a ninja could
I
appear on
understand
wrestling.
that, but that's kind of my point is that are we really going to pretend like this is still a thing here and it's not like a little racist?
A little bit.
Little racist here?
Well, we don't have the old administration's CEO looking over at it anymore. So we can
Yeah.
honestly say that we kind of don't have to worry about that anymore.
Do-rag Vince was a menace, but we can get into that.
Do-rag Vince was a felon on television.
And
all
they
right,
pulled
folks?
out the DQ. So New Day pulled out the win.
We'll most likely get a WrestleMania match out of this as well.
Do
That'll
you think
be
this
announced
ends up
next
on the
week.
pre-show or on night one?
No, I think it'll be
I mean,
night
they
one.
stacked some matches last night, so
They
I'm
did.
not sure.
They did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the announcement of Rey Mysterio and Grande Americano as well, be a one-on-one. You have to get a tag match in here though, because I'm noticing all of these matches are just singles or
Well, the match
triple
we
threats.
skipped over was the Bailey Lyra match that set up
I still don't
the
know what
gauntlet.
they're doing with these things, man. I said
These
this to
mid-card
you.
women's matches, mid-card titles, I should say, deserve a little bit more respect.
That was a long
floundering.
and hell of a match, though.
I think they took up a little bit more time than they should have.
Probably.
There were a couple botches in there that looked like smooth recoveries
I
or
see
just
that
some
a
grappling.
lot of them too.
Yeah.
I see
I don't
that
think they
even
work
when they're
well
not
together.
fighting. But I see that a lot with Bailey recently, and I see it a lot with Lyra. I don't know if it's her size or the aerial.
Lyra has been trying to evolve her move set, which
Yeah.
is interesting. And you saw a lot of it last night with what was that, like a cradle or something that she did to Bailey?
She almost
grabbed her
busted
legs and her
neck
arms.
last night too.
Yeah, the way she put her down was not safe.
Smart. And that is kind of my issue with her, is that she tries too hard to do these moves that she believes everybody is going to be into and really enjoy, which is great for the product. But it's kind of like what AEW has a problem with as well. All Elite Wrestling is when you do these crazy moves so often and they are so unsafe. One, it's
unsafe.
a high chance of being botched or just looking ugly. And two, with the possibility of injuries, the rest of the roster is not going to want to work with you.
Well, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I'm known for giving those about this. I think Lyra's overrated.
I have to agree with you.
Absolutely overrated.
I'm glad you said that because I was just going to ask, do you think they moved her up a little too quick?
Yes.
Definitely.
100%.
Okay.
Most definitely.
So it's not just me.
Well, I think they did
the
that
whole Irish infatuation
Yeah.
with Becky Lynch when
Exactly.
she went down to NXT to help raise up the next crop. Something somewhere, someone said, "Oh, this is a good idea," before her development was fully flourished out. Okay.
you want to know what I think actually happened behind the scenes? I think when Stephanie Vaquer looked at them and said, "I want to be an NXT," they said, "Well, our plan was to have you on the main roster."
That part.
And then they said, "Well, we'll grab the next available NXT person that could potentially be a main roster."
Because that did happen. She originally was supposed to go to the main
Yes.
roster. She
And
chose to
announced-
develop
she
herself in NXT.
told Bully Ray on the Busted Open After Dark pod that she wanted to be in NXT and chose to be there. And I think that really derailed a lot of what they were planning on, because I think the original idea was to have Stephanie Vaquer as the first Intercontinental Champion.
Most definitely.
Well,
I
that
agree
sets
with
up perfectly as the gauntlet, because now Bailey and Lyra will team up.
Yes, to be
Which-
in that gauntlet to
which
potentially
Bailey-
take on.
Which makes
the
no
tag
sense, though, to
champs.
still have a singles champion involved in a tag
She's
title
not
match.
good. I don't think that automatically disqualifies you, in my opinion, in a lot of these situations.
Yeah, you can't be a double champ in that aspect. To me, you can, but to me, it's like lazy booking.
If you do, then that the Intercontinental belt comes off of her
Immediately.
very quickly.
All right, we're almost to the meat, fellas. Let's
Yes,
get
do
to
it.
some of these potatoes right here. We've got Penta Cerromero, my guy right there, versus Dominic
My guy.
Mysterio.
Love Dom.
My guy.
Okay, let's just put it out there. Best Dominic Mysterio match on television that I've seen in 2025. We've got to remember this guy had more matches than anybody in 2024, and he was the most improved wrestler in 2023. So hats off right there to Dominic Mysterio.
Oh, 100%. It was easily.
Your opinion on the match, good sir?
Dude, I love seeing that he. Oh, are we getting mac and cheese?
Mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese. We've got our mac and cheese fest
Fantastic.
coming up.
Thank
Little
you, Jen.
station plug.
Appreciate
Mac
it.
and Cheese Fest is coming up the
Mac and cheese for
19th.
breakfast, everybody.
Absolutely.
That's how
Mac,
we get down.
go check out the Mac and Cheese Fest April 19th at the Kern County Fairgrounds. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some tickets for you guys and
Now,
share some.
where is this mac and cheese from?
That I'm not 100% sure.
We're gonna have to get back to you guys after.
Yeah,
commercial
we will
on
get
this.
that in a sec. But back to what we were. Did you get an answer for us?
No,
Sparky?
they did set up, going back to the Dom match. They set up the Fatal 4-Way, which was another one that was announced for WrestleMania
And
with Dom.
I just because that was going to be the second part of what I was going to bring up. First is because the first question I was going to bring up to both of you. I'm a massive Rey Mysterio fan from growing up. He was one of the favorites throughout my entire life. And watching Dominic wrestle, obviously, is a little close to the heart because he is the son of Rey. But he continuously uses his dad's move, the 619, which a lot of people do. And I honestly, the Zelina Vegas and all the world that you do use this move, stop. Please stop.
Please.
Please stop.
Stop
There's
using
only a
people's
hand-
finishers
I thought he
as
was
setup
Guerrero's kid.
moves.
No, well, I mean, that is
Just-
Allegedly.
I'm just playing.
Allegedly.
But that's the question I was going to bring to the two of you. And Dom was going to be a good example to me because Dom also didn't do it well up until last night.
Well, it was more of a lackadaisical, disrespectful approach on
But
how he
yeah,
did it.
that's
But
what I
when
was
he's
gonna
serious, as we seen last night, this man can commit to one of the better 619s done by anybody in the industry. And I'm not just saying that because he genetically inherited those moves. He's actually studied them and grown up in the ring since he could ball a fist.
He's a
walk,
20-year
or hit a
vet
front
at
flip.
30 years old.
That's insane when you think about it. It really is insane.
It is.
If for those of you old school fans, you'll remember the custody of Dom Mysterio match back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Hey, Dominic, I'm your papi.
Yes,
the late great Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, where you saw little baby Dom in all of his, childhood glory.
But I ask you because, I mean, I think he's an overall great wrestler, but he's always the dummy, the crash test dummy that everyone beats up on. Do you think this setup in WrestleMania with the 4-way with Braun?
I think Dom walks away with the belt.
I think Dom pulls it.
I'm gonna keep it real. This would be the perfect time to take it off of Braun.
Yeah.
I don't see Penta taking this right now.
I could, just because of how big of a talent he is to the fan base.
Fair. But I also don't see Finn getting this.
No.
I think when JD McDonough comes back, they take a run at the tag titles.
See, I don't know about that one because they did announce they were going to give Finn a solo run this year.
Oh,
so
we've been talking
around
about that
around
since
what time? Or will we see a new faction? Because we've been getting hints at Bullet Club merch and Bullet Club variations for the last few weeks now with Finn Balor and his promos and interactions and segments. Now, throughout the match, we've seen a Mexican Destroyer, which is like a cradled power slam, for those that don't know the terminology of that move, where a rotation happens of about 180 degrees and the opponent is slammed on their back. We've seen one go almost 200 degrees. I'm not going to say a full 360. That would be insane, but it was definitely a degree of turning into this flip that looked phenomenal on television.
Right.
Now, whether it was practice, rehearsed, instinctual, however it went down, great athleticism by Dominic Mysterio to counter that move, which eventually led to what we're about to describe. Towards the end of the match, we have Penta go over with this Penta driver, and Braun Breaker appears.
Going after Carlito.
Now,
Gave him
poor
the spear of
Carlito.
the year.
Some call the ambulance. He needs some milk.
Yeah, because it looked like the entrance was going downhill.
He needs some milk.
It is 100%
hit
going
hard.
downhill.
And an MRI. And I'm pretty sure whatever he had for lunch ended up in his pants right then and there.
Was an apple.
I've seen spears from Goldberg to Rhino,
Edge,
to Hugh Morris, Edge.
Edge's was still legendary.
You name it. Roman Reigns probably got one of the best spears in the game right now. But let me tell you something about this boy, Braun Breaker, Scott Steiner's nephew, Rick Steiner's son. I've never seen a human get cut in half in television.
Until last night.
Speeds was
worse.
No.
Speeds was worse.
No.
Let's be
Did he
honest.
fly though?
Dude, Speed got folded like a lawn chair.
No, he got
I
clapped
thought
shut
he
like a
literally had
Nokia
a
cell phone
concussion.
from back in the day. Well, this guy did he crap his pants.
I don't know that.
I'm pretty sure
We
Carlito
pretty
was
sure
wearing
he
his
did.
brown pants.
I'm pretty sure. We could discuss that all day.
Yeah,
I was gonna
because
say,
And for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, a
Look up the
spear is
footage.
essentially a full speed tackle.
Yes,
NFL
full
tackle,
speed.
no pads.
now imagine when he was doing this in college.
Well, he was a fullback in college.
Well, this guy right here,
He was a fullback and a very good one at Kennesaw State,
very
mind you.
effective with his football training into his wrestling techniques.
Had a
It
very
was
short stint in the NFL, but never
Possibly
really got
one of the
signed to
best
a roster.
spears I've seen, which led to an interaction between the participants in this triple threat intercontinental match that we're going to see at WrestleMania. Now, moving on very briefly.
Hold on, before we do that, do you agree with me that Dom walks away with the belt? Because in theory and in the past, the Intercontinental belt has been given to either the next big star
Or the next workhorse.
or the last workhorse. Because you remember that's why I believe Jimmy Uso will also get a push for the U.S. title because Jimmy this year is doing what Dom did last
and
year.
I just think it's a perfect setup to end
Nice.
Finn with the Judgment
Right,
Day.
and as you stated, but when we started this, nobody had more matches last year than Dominic Mysterio did.
Very much so.
Who was literally doing shows on Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. That's a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Friday,
And
plus
house shows.
and the in-between house shows all the week, which means he had a match every single day of the week for almost,
A
4
year.
months?
Yeah. Longer than that.
And it's been kind of criminal to me that the only solo chip that Dominic has held has been the NXT North American title, which is the mid-card title for the essentially feeder brand.
But wasn't it a good look?
It was a great look.
It was a great look. They
was a
all
great
had
look for
gold
him.
at the time.
But that's the point, is I think he's overdue.
About that time, yeah. Let's not put a tag title on him. Let's give him a singles chip and see how he does. Honestly, I think it's a great move, especially for how much heat he draws, which could turn into a natural aesthetic of cheers. Last night, we had cheers of "Let's Go Dominic" for the first time. I don't think I've ever heard that. That was insane.
He's putting it out there.
He put that work down.
And
we might actually be able to hear a promo without actual booze, drowning.
All right, you might be asking for too much, but it's a possibility.
I think that moved to Charlotte. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Hey, I'm telling you right now, we're gonna get into this Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins segment because I mean, seriously, Seth Rollins made some great points. And I'm going to allude to something that you mentioned a few weeks back. Could we possibly see a Paul Heyman turn, a double turn on CM Punk and Roman Reigns, and him align himself with Seth Rollins? Now, this is something that has been bubbling. Yes, it's been bubbling over the internet for the last 2 weeks. We've been seeing it get closer and closer, with more so his agitation of the situation with CM Punk being involved with Roman Reigns in this match. And
Seth is so good on the mic, man.
This whole history that we have between just Punk and Rollins has now entrapped Roman Reigns. This favor now seems to be the word of choice in this whole segment. Him not stomping Paul Heyman's nice little mushy head into the mat.
Lisa, you owe me
a favor. So now we're just calling favors out on people and holding their indentured servitude hostage as a manager. Hey, you know what? Whatever works for television, folks. I'm just going to say one thing. We're getting those drips of cinema that are going to make this match feel more important, because if you notice, throughout everything that he said and all the accusations, he said this match is for the soul of this industry. Now, could you not have 3 different personified versions of this industry, with Seth Rollins being that guy that'll put a company on his back, Roman Reigns, who will definitely be your face and embody your champion that you would want to have on your brand, and CM Punk, who overall, not just with his leadership and experience, his cult following, pun intended. And that just really sums it up right there. Those are some of the 3 biggest names that you do not want to leave off of a WrestleMania card.
And real quick, too, before we get to a break, because I know we got to pay some bills, Sparky, but we can't end this without talking about the cinema that was the Jey Uso promo.
Oh, definitely.
On Gunther.
I'm going to get you. Jey is back. I'm going to get you, Jey.
Rikishi's son has finally put out, I personally believe, the best promo of his life. And at this point, you look at it on the face of Gunther, who is arguably the most dominant wrestler in the WWE outside of Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
He looks worried.
He sold it so well.
He sold it very, very well.
Great job on Gunther. Honestly, I think this match has just upped its level of importance and significance in the card, because for a while people were sleeping or just dissatisfied with it not being a main event. So I think they gave the fans a little more than what they expected in a way that possibly wasn't being seen. It was a great angle, and the sacrifice of poor Big Jim, it definitely gave us just due in this segment.
Well, and again, Big Jim will get his title shot, I believe, for taking this absolute beating that he took last week.
Was it 15
now some quick
stitches or something like that?
Do you want to field these questions real quick? Because actually, some of those do pertain to your SmackDown.
No, we'll take a quick break, and then I'll bounce off some listener questions to you guys. It's all regarding wrestling. If you have anything, you got 3 or 4 minute break right now. Text them in 661-396-1000. This is the early bird special. Burdick, Sparky, KG, right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.
Speaking of overrated,
Oh,
I tell you, Orton is way overrated.
you're talking to two millennials here. No.
Whoa.
Hold on.
Whoa. This man is speaking
Hold on.
Get him.
Go ahead.
Hold back.
Get him.
First and foremost, you're listening to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. The blasphemer is Sparky. The third guy you're hearing right now is 24 kg of Hits 93.1. Our wrestling connoisseur, as it were. And you're talking to two millennials who grew up during the John Cena, Randy Orton era. You didn't get to see 2006 skinhead Randy.
Nah, you didn't get to see all that hate.
You didn't get to see
You didn't get to see all that hate, that
Want
violence.
him.
He was kicking senior citizens in the face, bro.
He
Come
was.
on.
He really was.
What kind of a human being is down to do that on television?
Which honestly, they're really starting to backtrack that because they looked like they were going to bring that back for a second, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. Regardless, you're listening to the Early Bird Special.
I brought that up because the first question
is
do you guys think Randy Orton gets a match and who against?
I'm digging this Nick Aldis idea.
I'm with the Nick Aldis or Drew McIntyre situation.
So that would be a good one right there.
The people who don't know or don't follow, Randy Orton, longtime legend of the industry, was scheduled to go up against Kevin Owens.
Appropriately rated Randy Orton.
Appropriately rated.
Fighting old men. Building a superstar off fighting old
What
superstars.
did Ric Flair do then?
I'll say the same thing about Ric Flair too.
What did Hulk Hogan do?
You don't see me as a Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan fan.
Who hurt you this morning?
I'm just saying. I haven't been a fan of him.
Anywho, so Kevin Owens has apparently sustained what is seeming to be a legitimate neck injury and has been wiped from the WrestleMania card.
But is it though?
I believe it to be real.
But is it though?
He's such a good
He's
salesman.
so good at selling it, but we will see. I think
Very deceptive.
If we obviously see a Kevin Owens appearance this week, it could be the biggest switcheroo to 3-card money move that we've seen since Mark Henry.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Or Mark Henry, faking his retirement to get his title shot again. However, it seems to me that they're building up for a match between Randy and the GM of SmackDown, Nick Aldis, who is a longtime TNA champion and has been with the company for over 2 years. Because if you remember when Randy came back, there was a situation where Randy RKO'd Aldis, and then Aldis, charged him $50K.
Yeah.
Or fined him $50,000.
Yeah.
And he gave him $100,000.
What is this for?
For next time, is what he says.
We've seen that next time just occur.
And honestly, with Nick Aldis still being in ring shape, husband of Mickie James, for those of you who are longtime WWE fans as well, we could potentially see, just as a scrap match, Nick Aldis against Randy Orton, because I genuinely believe you're getting Damian Priest against Drew McIntyre. They've already had promos building up to it. Drew McIntyre selling this glass in the eye situation. Yeah. So I think you're going to get Randy versus
Do you
Nick
think
Aldis.
he gets one? Or do you think they just scrap the whole Orton at WrestleMania?
No, I think Orton's too big of a name, and you've already built this too much for him to be just.
I think Nick comes out next Friday and demands an apology, and Randy gives him his answer in the form of another RKO.
Or a boot.
Or the boot.
Or the boot.
Which sets up an impromptu, but still a very satisfying WrestleMania
which
match
could be a
for the
solid
legend Randy Orton.
Legend killer.
This
legend killer.
How do you get be a legend killer fighting guys over
legend
age,
killer.
retirement age?
What about all those matches he had with John Cena?
What about all those matches he had with Batista?
He said, no, you mean those jorts he was wrestling in the ring? Nobody could see Cena?
All those matches he had with the soon-to-be Hall of Famer Triple H.
Well, the other one was saying, do you see Cross fighting Orton?
Ooh.
No, only because they've been
building.
Probably not that quick.
No,
with 2 weeks away.
You got to let that one build for about a good 6 months.
That would be a good one too.
Have about a 3-match feud with that one.
If Karrion Kross is doing the whole hair the same as the wrestler I'm wrestling right now, he's gonna have to shave his head within the next 2 days.
I don't think he has a problem with that.
No, dog.
That's the thing.
He probably doesn't, but those locks look really good right now. And plus, they've just like I say,
he's been growing out his hair for a while, bro.
Just like I say about the Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest situation, they've been building this entire don't say 3-way AJ Styles Karrion Kross match at least, which is why I believe Karrion sneaks into that AJ and Logan Paul match somehow.
Ooh.
The other question, we have got 2 more. The other one was Yeet or Gunther.
Yeet all day.
And
play my soundtrack.
I was thinking Gunther. I was thinking
one
Gunther
word.
until
Yeet.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm all for Yeet, have been since this entire match got started.
Thank you.
You can go to our clips and see I predicted Yeet to win the Royal Rumble. And from that day forward, Kimball can attest this, and so can Sparky. I have said it is time for Jey Uso to finally hoist a main title.
I just want to give you your props on saying that was probably the biggest call of the year. Nobody.
I called both of them.
And when I say nobody in the wrestling community, online or in person, fathomed that Jey Uso would walk out of the Royal Rumble the winner. I clearly said, if you go back to the episode, CM Punk, John Cena, yeah, malarkey, all right, mulligan, straight up,
You're
right
close.
there. All right, Jey Uso walk. I was literally like, I think I texted you right away and was like, oh my God, you were right, bro. What you got, Miss Cleo over there that you kicking it with? Telling you the future, boy.
Call me the wrestling Nostradamus. I'm telling you right now. You can look at any of our wrestling videos, and I've been right about 90% of the time. I'm just saying, not to pat myself on the back. It's wrestling, so it's not exactly hard to predict.
Give you the old Barry Horowitz, the pat on the back.
Now I can't sit here and predict March Madness to save my life, but hey, at least I can help you with your wrestling cards if you ever start betting on this.
And the final question was, where is Alexa Bliss?
Alexa is currently brewing. I'm going to tell you right now, there is talks that we are going to get an Alexa Bliss inside the Wyatt 6 situation.
And where have they been?
They are also brewing. Bo Dallas has been dealing with an injury. They are on the SmackDown roster. And if you remember, I believe it was 2-3 weeks ago, there was a mention and a slight little QR code again from the group, so they will most likely be coming back. Now, I would assume.
What's Bo Dallas's injury situation? Has he been cleared yet?
He is supposedly on the way back to being cleared. I'm not 100% sure if he's cleared yet.
Well, that's going to be a great and refreshing boost for WrestleMania season, because we haven't seen any Wyatt 6 activity in about several months now.
I know they're supposed to be a part of the Universal Studios Halloween deal.
Actually, because for those of you who don't know, the Wyatt 6 is a horror-based faction in the WWE, which was announced and debuted just under a year ago on Raw. A fantastic faction built from the mind of the great late Bray Wyatt, who is just incredible at all of this and was incredible when he was on this earth. Unfortunately, taken from us too early due to COVID and some heart issues that he was dealing with throughout his life. But it is now led by his brother under the name Bo Dallas, who it is just really mimicking what his brother has done and is incredible at what he does.
Hey, Sparky, what you looking at? You're seeing if Bray Wyatt was overrated?
No, I know who Bray Wyatt is.
Okay,
I was checking our.
I'm still hurt from that Randy Orton.
I will
comment.
not. Randy Orton, you can have any comments you want. There is no slandering of the great late Bray Wyatt.
You can't do that,
I
man.
love that guy.
You can't do that.
The Fiend.
And I went
lives
back
on.
and did my homework and watched a lot of the Wyatt matches.
Oh, it's incredible.
How'd you feel about him?
I love the guy.
Honestly, I really, really wish we could have gotten that little rub between the Undertaker and Bray Wyatt.
Yes,
it would have been.
And that was my first shirt I bought was a Wyatt 6 shirt.
Yes, it was.
When I came back.
Yes,
So
it was.
I feel
I
like
can attest to that.
we really got robbed of a WrestleMania situation with, even though the Muscle Man dance wasn't the greatest promo, Bobby Lashley and Bray Wyatt would have cooked.
Yeah, it would have been a great
because it was in sequence to a more important storyline that we never got to see paid off. And yeah, man, Muscle Man dance.
Bobby Lashley, again, for those of you who are fans of the long-term,
long-term booking, man.
Short situation in the UFC.
Yeah.
So fantastic individual as well. No longer with the company, unfortunately. But
unfortunately,
at this point, Sparky, we got any other text questions for Mr. Kimball before we
the
let
other
him
one
go?
was the trivia, which I believe all three were wrong.
Oh no!
One was DuckTales.
DuckTales. No.
And I love that because that just that
I
DuckTales
love
theme
me some
song stuck in my
DuckTales. In
head.
fact,
I almost came back with that.
Let's come back with that because the DuckTales theme song is legendary. But
DuckTales,
no,
man.
DuckTales.
The other two
is
were
not.
Superman.
No, Superman
They're
is not.
close.
But you're getting closer. You're absolutely getting closer. If you guys don't get the answer by the end of the show, we'll let you know. Or we can just carry it over next week, and maybe we'll have a pair of Mac and Cheese Fest tickets to give away.
That's what I was hoping. That DuckTales one was good, though.
That is fantastic. It's Darkwing Duck is actually a
mac and
superhero you're
cheese
looking
is
for.
good anytime, but when you have a festival of mac and cheese, I'm just saying.
Are you DJing at this festival, my friend?
I would believe I will be there in some form of capacity for the company.
WrestleMania weekend.
We're just gonna have to figure it out.
It is WrestleMania weekend. It's WrestleMania
I
Saturday.
do have some bookings to attend to, so we're gonna make time for a little bit of everything.
Absolutely.
You guys just need to show up and show out and be ready for some mac and cheese festivities.
Exactly. Find the early bird special. Find 24KG on Instagram. And we appreciate your time. We'll have to get you back. We'll have to do a longer video with KG before WrestleMania, because we're gonna have to put our predictions out. Everyone's talking about the Flair and Tiffy thing that we didn't get to get into too much. So
we're gonna have to save that because that needs a little further dissecting.
Yes, we'll definitely have to go along with that one.
And we got
that was a very controversial segment that we could talk about it at a later date.
We unfortunately got to get into Charlotte's divorce situation, I should say.
I don't want to watch Real Housewives of WWE.
No, that's what we're getting.
That's pretty much what we're setting up right
so,
there.
And I was seeing the same thing with the with Naomi. That one was rough, but we'll get
all
into
this drama in the world.
Find the early bird special, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok, right here. ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. God, my childhood. Coming back to me. Welcome back to the early bird special. Upside birds. I told you guys. We are foul. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. It's Spark. I mean, let's wrap up this show. We've been talking baseball for the last couple of days, my friend. I don't know if you saw this. The Dodgers last night came up a little bit short against the Nationals, 6-4. Ohtani was a double short of the cycle. Fortunately, that would have been a really cool little talking point for them. But once again, the Dodgers hitting is not showing up as it did in the beginning of the season. Fret not, Dodger fans. You'll be fine. It's just a little spurt. You'll get back to your winning ways very, very soon here. But the stories that I wanted to talk about in the world of baseball, I don't know if you saw this one. Blake Snell, the Dodgers pitcher, is the latest in a string of burglaries that have been happening at the homes of athletes, along with Richard Sherman, former cornerback of the Seattle Seahawks and 49ers. It seems that, Sherman had this happen when his family was
it's
home,
happened again,
which was ridiculously scary, I'm sure. But
are they hidden the side room?
Yes, Blake Snell though was targeted on the day that he was pitching for the opening day or his opening day start of the season, and it seems like they're saying, the FBI is saying, that they are unsure if any of these are related to each other. Personally, I have to believe they are. Spark, what say you?
I would say the same thing. I don't know how they would. Someone's going to have to get caught sooner or later. And then hopefully they could put the puzzle pieces together. But it is happening a lot, and it's happening too much. And I did catch Ralph talking about it yesterday's show, and I had to look into the Snell one. I didn't know anything about the Snell one. I did hear about the there was a couple other soccer players that's happened to over the last 2 or 3 months. Plus, this goes all the way back to the end of the NFL season, where it was happening to several players too.
Joe Burrow had his house targeted, I believe.
Kelsey and
Mahomes both had theirs broken into. Again, this is all organized crime. It has to be. The FBI has warned every sports organization to warn your players, get security, do something to protect themselves and their families, which if you haven't done that yet, what are you waiting
like
for?
Tua, he's got armed security.
Right. And I mean, again, that's almost necessary though at this point in time, because these guys know how much you're making and they know where you live. I mean, we've said this, last week on Wednesday, protect yourself. Do what Robert Downey Jr. did. Wipe your address or your house right off of Google Maps if you have to. Do something to combat this, because it's going to continue, because these guys know how much is in your home. They know you're making millions of dollars playing football, basketball, baseball, and they know you're going to be gone for 2 to 3 hours at a time. And trust me, when it comes to burglaries of a home, they don't just choose a home and break the window. They have been watching you and your schedule for quite some time. They know what you do. They know what your family does. Whoever lives in that house comes in, comes out. They know the scheduling, and they'll know when to strike. So
I did hear some inside. They were talking about that. They think if it's not some type of
organized group,
that it's stemming from a lot of the whether it's the pool boy or the maids, or it can go as small as that to as large as what Ralph was saying, that he thinks it was some organized group that's doing it.
Honestly, I agree with him.
I would not
It makes a lot more sense to me that this is an organized group, or groups rather, because obviously they're not moving from state to state to break into these guys' houses. But it wouldn't surprise me if these organized crime groups are sitting there having the same idea. Why not go after the guys that have millions upon millions of dollars and memorabilia that they could turn around and sell for double that amount?
And they're going to the deep, where they know when they're pitching, when they're on the road, when
they do their research.
Yeah,
that's the scariest part about it, man. They do their research. So I just mimic what the FBI says. Protect yourself, protect your family, figure it out, man. Get it done.
Just like Busta Rhymes says.
At this point, man.
Protect that neck.
Looking at a couple other games from yesterday, Detroit outlasting the Yankees 6-2. The Pittsburgh Pirates pulling off a win against the St. Louis Cardinals, dropping the Cardinals to 4-5 as they win 8-4. The Toronto Blue Jays and Vladdy, with his brand new contract of $500 million on a 14-year deal, outlast the Boston Red Sox 6-2. There's also a story coming out of the Red Sox, Spark. I don't know if you saw this one, but I need to dive into this Netflix series that they have on the Red Sox, a year with the Red Sox situation, I believe is what they call it. Their star, Yarin talked about his struggles with mental health and almost committing suicide last year due to a lot of his struggles and stuff like that in his personal life. I love when athletes talk about this, Sparky, because I feel athletes, amongst other celebrities, deal with more stress than us normal people will ever have to deal with. And realistically,
just a different
speaking,
type of,
right. Well, think of the death threats this guy probably gets anytime he's playing poorly. You know,
mental
what I mean?
health is definitely a big topic.
Absolutely. And it's something that I think everybody needs to be more aware of and more mindful of, especially the crazy fans. I know we talked about the McAfee situation last week of how he's being targeted for a lawsuit due to what he said about a girl from Ole Miss. And the girl from Ole Miss was getting death threats and stuff like that because of this is, I'm not going to lie, the fan bases and fanatics of sport are probably the craziest people on the planet when it comes to their teams. And to send death threats to anybody as an athlete is absolutely ridiculous. And for this just shows that these athletes care. They care about this type of thing. They care about their own safety and the safety of their families, and it has an actual effect on them. And honestly, a positive example of this would be what Philadelphia did for Trey Turner last year when he was in his struggles, when the entire city got behind him thanks to one fan and turned around his entire season, essentially, and the season of the team. So I think this is a good example and a good message that should be spread around the league and to its fans. Let's calm down and remember that these athletes are people too and are just trying to make money just like everybody else.
And definitely while we're talking baseball, I'm going to sprinkle in because we talked a little bit about this last week, but it looks like it's starting to stir up. The MLB owners are reportedly agitated about the salary cap as players brace for a lockout. We've talked about this with the fans that aren't Dodger fans.
Baseball needs a salary cap, and we've been saying it forever. Now, the only issue is you're going to have to get everybody to agree to a salary cap, and that means owners are going to have to fork over money they don't want to fork over. Like owners of, say, I don't know, the A's, who still can't figure out if they're going to be in Sacramento or Vegas in the next year.
Did you look at that ballpark that they're
I
playing
did.
at?
Honestly,
Wow.
I like the idea of what they're doing in Vegas, but there is a very valid speculation. They don't leave. They stay in Sacramento. And honestly, wouldn't be surprised with the move at all, knowing how the A's work and knowing how the organization has been run. So that is the biggest thing. I think I have to agree with the owners. We've needed a salary cap in baseball for far too long. I mean, you got guys like the Dodgers obviously doing the Shohei thing, and this would pull back on that as well. Not allow you to be able to deter your money for the next 15 to 20 years.
Well, we can definitely jump into that. I'm sure this story is going to keep brewing, and we'll get a lot more into it. Join us on Wild Thing Wednesday. We've got a local, or not a local, but an MMA story that kind of hit the local
scene
around here. So we'll talk about that much, much more. A big shout out to KG for joining us on our WWE Raw recap. Plus, we have a new video coming up soon before WrestleMania. And join us tomorrow live, 7 to 9 a.m., the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.